Okay.
What was your favorite subject in middle school?
Middle school. So middle school is 6th, 7th, 8th. Yeah. So in 6th grade we did physics, which actually was a lot of fun because we talked about things that you could see every day, like airplanes and how they worked. And that was really cool. And I also remember in 7th grade we did something called life sciences, which was very hands-on. We dissected a chicken wing. Hands-on again, kind of things to touch, things to look at. So I liked those two classes. My favorite class in middle school though was probably algebra. Clean answers.
Is it gone?
Go ahead.
Alright, so what other jobs are you thinking of doing that were possibilities for when you were old enough?
When I was in middle school?
No, what, like, jobs as a grown-up?
As a grown-up. So when I graduated college, I actually wanted to join the Peace Corps and go do sustainable development in Africa, in West Africa. And then I decided to go back and get a PhD. And that kind of led one thing after another, one great opportunity after another has led me here. And so I have no regrets, but I did, I still think the Peace Corps could have been fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to become a scientist?
I think when I was in 5th grade, we did a section on whales. We studied oceanography, and then specifically we studied whales. And at that time, I really I loved whales and wanted to be a cetologist, so somebody who studies whales. And that lasted for a couple of years, and then it kind of went away. And I thought I wanted to be a lawyer and work more on policy. And so this is where my plans to do sustainable development came from. And then when I went, during college, I did a year abroad studying in Costa Rica and Guatemala, and worked on some sustainable development projects there, which were wonderful to be involved with the people. I liked working with the people and doing some of the science, but I always felt kind of torn between the policy and working with the people and doing the scientific research to know how to move things forward. And so when I ended up back in college, my final years in college, I focused more in on science instead of the policy, because I thought that in order to participate in some of the global sustainable development progress that I wanted to participate in, there was still a lot of science that was needed. There's still a lot of research needed to know how to move forward. And that's kind of what led me in that direction.
Did somebody suggest that you can become a scientist, or did you just say, hey, I want to be a scientist?
I don't actually think anyone suggested it. Maybe until late into college. I really kind of got to the realm of being a scientist and wanting to go into science from doing other things and finding the science lacking, right? So I wanted to do environmental policy. I think like many other people interested in ecology, I went through a period where I wanted to save the rainforest but those things, the policy needs the science, and often in learning about the policy and learning about how you interact with the people who actually are using the resources, whether they're using them sustainably or not, there's science missing, there's basic research missing. And so I kind of ended up continuously circling back around to science, both in classes through college and then even in deciding to go back for a PhD, even though it was never really my targeted destination. until probably I decided to go for a PhD when I was 22.
When did you start to realize that you wanted to do science instead of any other thing?
I would say that was during the year I studied abroad in Central America, when we actually did some of the basic research and at this place it was integrated pest management. So part of the goal was to figure out how to get more people in this very agricultural community to adopt integrated pest management. That is not relying on chemicals, but actually not relying on chemicals alone, but going out and understanding the interactions between the pests and the environment and how they were impacting, this was tomato plants, but the agriculture, in order to better control the pests. And a lot of that was outreach with people and thinking through policy decisions, but a lot of it was, and what I enjoyed the most, was actually setting up experiments to figure out what are the thresholds? How many pests per plant can you have? What are the impacts? What can you do? I liked the really basic scientific nature of using the scientific method and asking questions and doing experiments. And so when I came back from that program, again, this is in college, I was 20 years old. That's when I decided I wanted to be a scientist instead of something else.
When you first started just being a scientist, I have the scientific method in my homeroom in school, and it seems pretty cool to be a scientist. But when you started, do you have any regrets that you became a scientist when you started? Was it being a really hard, and did you have any regrets when you first started?
So I wouldn't say necessarily regrets. There are certainly things that I haven't enjoyed along the way, and they are outweighed by far by the things I have enjoyed. Things I haven't enjoyed, there are certainly certain classes you have to take in order to get to the more interesting classes. And for everybody, I think what classes those are is different. I had to take I really liked organic chemistry, but I didn't care for inorganic chemistry that much. So there are really subtle differences in classes that felt like I was taking them only to get to the next level and not because I was enjoying them. And then in early on in grad school, collecting data, you collect a mix of data that's for yourself and a mix of data that's for your lab or for your job. And sometimes, especially maybe in ecology, there's a lot of really tedious work. We went out and we measured thousands of trees, and so we measured the diameter, and we collected seeds in laundry baskets. We'd leave them out for a month and then bring them all back into the lab and sort through them. And those sort of things could be really, really boring. Again, not a regret, but it wasn't the most fun part of my trajectory. And now when I do those sorts of things, I'm doing them because I thought the questions and they're my own data, and they don't seem as boring. Or I choose to do something else.
Where did you grow up as a kid?
I grew up in southern Vermont in a town called West Brattleboro, and we had woods behind my house. We spent a lot of time out in the woods, and there was a stream that we could follow for hours, and we would spend hours out in the woods alone and follow the stream and make forts. And I never did anything particularly science-y, but I spent a lot of time outdoors, a lot of time. Also, 5th grade, we read My Side of the Mountain, which was a big motivator for me and a lot of my friends. We would pretend to move out into the woods and think about how we might survive. And a lot of that, you could do in many parts of the country, but I think the Northeast in particular, there's just a lot of area where you can be outside pretty safely. A lot of green, forested area, lots of room for imagination. And the town I grew up in was fairly progressive environmentally, so we had a lot of just good background kind of all along